guys, my name is Johanna. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. A big shout out to my channel members for supporting my channel. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to be doing a flip through of my mostly completed 2002 reading journal. It is currently the 21st of December, so there's a little bit that I still need to do, but I'll do that probably a New Year's weekend. I will put timestamps when I actually start doing the flip through of my 2022 reading journal, because this first part is going to be super chatty, and then I'll actually go into what I was using and how I use this, and then actually get into it. But I wanted to put some caveats out there before we get started. So first of all, like I just mentioned, it's probably going to be quite a long video. There's certainly things that I want to talk about, and so you might want to get comfortable, get cozy. If you're looking for something sped through, fast forwarded, voiced over, this is actually not the channel for you. I am not a book tuber. I'm not a bookstagrammer. I don't even have TikTok. And so there's just a lot of things that you won't see in this. I'll mention some of it as I'm flipping through, just because I don't set goals. I don't track a lot of stats. Reading is a hobby of mine, and so my hobbies are to help me unwind or get out of my head or just deal with my anxiety, and so I don't feel the need to put any sort of pressure on myself. I'm very much a mood hobbyist, and because we only have a certain amount of time in any given day, if I'm doing this hobby, then other hobbies are not getting done, and so I let the wind take me where I need it to be. Reading and my hobbies in general are very much a tool for me, like a fork or a chair. I don't let a fork tell me what I'm going to eat. And while a chair will tell me where I sit, it doesn't tell me how, and it doesn't tell me how long. It's just a tool. And so are my hobbies, and so are the journals that I enjoy tracking some things about my hobbies. And probably the biggest one that I want you guys to know is that I am a long time skimmer, skipper, back of the book gister. I just really want to know what's happening in the story. If it helps, sometimes I view certain stories in certain books sort of like a magazine. I'll flip through, I'll get what I want from it, and then I move on to something else. Am I going to remember that magazine later today, tomorrow, next week, next year? Probably not. And is that okay with me? Absolutely. Did I get what I wanted out of it? Sure. And so I say that because when you see the numbers that I'm pulling so far, you might think, oh my God, where do you find the time? Yeah, it's not unheard of for me to read up to like 30-ish% of a book and then feel like, okay, how am I feeling about this? Do I really want to finish this? I'll read the end of it, probably the last 5 chapters, and yes, I won't know why they got there. I may not even know everyone who's in the final scenes of the book, but it also gives me an idea of, okay, do I actually want to continue to read this or not? Because I am not someone who gets fussed about spoilers. I'd rather know, is this going to be an interesting ride for me, or am I just wasting my time? Because I do have so many hobbies, I'd rather do something else that's more interesting. Now, I also am a person who, if I enjoy a book enough, I can't wait to reread it again. And because I am a skimmer, skipper, back of the book gister, I always find things that I didn't encounter the first go around. And to me, that's fun and it makes it interesting. So just please be aware of that as I'm going through this. I think that's all the caveats that I can remember. I don't write things down. I did want to point out why I've moved into this. If you didn't see the video where I kind of went through this when it was blank, then I'll go ahead and link that in the description box. But prior to 2022, I would read on average between 10 and 15 books a year. And so the setup that I have, was in here. Now these are both Maisie Lane Co journals. Sorry, I always put a plastic cover on my journals, even though this is like one of those faux leather ones. I do want my covers to be as pristine as possible. My name is Johanna. My channel name is Jojazahana. I made up that right there, so I actually don't know how to say it, but whatever. And so when I was just reading just a few books a year, then the setup that I had in here, which was at the time my long-term reference journal, where I was going to warehouse a lot of collections that I just wanted to keep in one place over a period of years, this was sufficient for me because I could fill it out as I go, and then as I needed to, I could always just skip to the next blank page. But as I picked up more books, and I specifically picked up more books because I picked up a Kindle Fire, then I realized I didn't like how this was set up. And so I ran out of things on the bookshelf. This was my rereads, and so I put another one further back here somewhere. And I had planned to do some spreads, and I didn't like the haphazardness of it. Like I said, when I set this up back in January 2021, it worked perfectly fine. If it wasn't something that I was doing with any kind of regularity, then it didn't bother me that I would have to skip from here to here to here to here. But my reading habits, my viewing habits all changed. And so there's just certain things that I wanted to track and certain things that I didn't, but I also wanted it all in one place. And since I already had this journal, I thought, okay, let me just make a devoted reading journal. Now, because I didn't pick up my Kindle Fire until April 2022, and by the time I got to June, July of 2022, I realized, one, that wasn't working for me, and two, there was just certain things that I wanted and certain things I already knew at that time. This has been a really interesting work in progress. However, I've been putting off filling this in because there was so much catch up to do. But the way that I could do catch up is in my everyday carry, my all-in-one planner, I do have a section, and I've had this since the beginning of the year, where I track the books that I've read thus far. And so it didn't really concern me that, okay, I'm getting towards the end of the year and I still hadn't finished setting this up because I had all of the data. But this annual planner, which is for YouTube, which is for my work, which is for my hobbies, I do bill pay, I do all kinds of things in here. I will probably keep this for another year after I've completed it, but it's not something that I'm going to keep forever and a day. And this is data that I want to be able to refer to year over year, hence why it seems like it's double duty, but this is very useful for me because I can update this on a daily or weekly basis, but then I can update this whenever I have time to do so. So that's why this system is the way it is, just because the way that I work and the way that my brain works. All right, so we are finally getting into this journal. Again, I've shown this, I think once before on my channel. This is Maisie Lane Co. A5.grid journal. She no longer does journals, but again, it's 160 GSM dot grid. You can find them on Archer and Olive. I no longer shop on Archer and Olive. I live here in Hawaii. The last time I put 3 journals in my cart, I was able to work some sales, and so the journal themselves came out to like $60 something, and the shipping was $49. And there's no way that I'm paying nearly the same price as the product in shipping. And so if I do want any Archer and Olive journals, then there's some other places I can go where shipping is not a predominant cost. Or Amazon has some great journals that with as heavyweight paper as there. So, I'm not going to get too bogged down into the whole Archer and Olive thing. I do want to investigate notebook therapy, but I also don't want to have a lot of excess blank journals. I just don't have the spot for it. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. So I did set this up, and this is going to span, hopefully, for several years. I do like to have it all in one spot, and it is a dedicated reading journal. There's no other information in here. And because I had the information from 2021, I decided to import it in here. I did have information prior to this, but it was all in my annual journals and I no longer have them. Hence why I realized how that was not going to work for me. And so, even though it's unfortunate that I don't have it all warehoused in one place, that's fine. I did forget to print 3 book covers and I still need to do that, but it's on the to-do list. But I do like how this spread look. For this particular stamp right here, I had found this on Amazon. If I can find it, I will link it below. But it's actually, I cut this right here so that it was just the 5-star rating stamp for me. And between that one and that one, those are the most used stamps on here. But again, if I can find it, because sometimes a stock goes out of stock on Amazon, I will link it below. I don't know the size of these. I just did all of this in Canva. Yeah, I didn't measure anything. I just printed some things off and hoped for the best. And it seemed to work on this particular spread. For 2022, I did want to do sort of an intro page. I also knew that I wanted to go for sort of like a dark poison, dark garden theme. And so at least for the annual pages, there is a lot of consistency by way of sort of this maroony pink, black, beige, and this sort of dark sage green. And I loved the look of that. And this was absolutely inspired by, I think her name is Heba from My Little Journal. She does a year-long challenge where she wants to read every day. And I loved the idea of it. And because I set this up mid-year, I already knew at that point that there were very few days that I actually missed. So all of these here are days that I did not read. And I thought, okay, well, how clever is that? Instead of coloring every single day, let me just color in the days that I don't read. Although this actually makes me feel kind of sad, not because I didn't do a whole blackout, but because it just, I don't know, it seems so boring. So I'm rethinking this because it's something I definitely want to continue. And since July, I have not missed a day. So unless I'm going to miss some days towards the ending of the year, this is how this is going to look. I mean, it makes sense by way of how much work I'm putting into it, even though I did have to draw out all those lines. But I don't know, I think visually I could have done this a little better. This would be what people consider their TBR list. I don't actually have a lot of physical unread books. I have 15. I do have some on my Kindle app, but I don't count those. I don't track this because I feel the compulsion to read this. I track this because in the event that my friend Andy is like, hey, do you want to do a buddy read? I can tell her by way of the physical books that I have based on this list right here. I don't have shelves and shelves and shelves of unread books because I don't have space for that. Believe me, if I did, I would. On my Kindle Unlimited, I don't purchase a lot of ebooks. I generally specifically purchase books that I'm either buddy reading with my friend Andy, or we're doing in her book club Patreon, or if it's something that'll fit a prompt that I can't get any other way. Otherwise, a lot of the books that I read are via Kindle Unlimited. So it's sort of like a library service. You just pay a monthly subscription and you can have out a certain amount of books. So any downloaded books on my Kindle app are subject to change, especially if it's a Kindle Unlimited, because I might see something else recommended on Instagram that I want to read. And anything that I've actually purchased, well, I know I'll get to it eventually. Again, I'm very much a mood hobbyist, and so I read what I want. Now we get into volume. Now, when I set this up, I knew that I did not want to do the bookshelfie. And honestly, it's because everybody is. And I just wanted this to look different. And so I took some craft sticker paper that I had, and I used that stamp right there, did a whole bunch of stamping, and just kind of configured this together. But I really did not realize when I was setting this up the volume of books that I was reading. And so I actually had to tip in this page right here because I would not have had enough books already put on place. And because I wanted all of this in one area, that just felt made the most sense to me. I do have some extra books. I don't know that I'll need them because I do have some space down here, and I could just, do singles here and there. It won't be chronological. Up until this point, it is, but I'd be okay with that. And then once I'm done and I know I've accounted for all of the books, then I might go back in and add a little bit more deco. But until that point, I wanted to make sure I had enough room where I can add things. Now, when I first started, I wanted to put the name of the book and the author, but that slowly became no bueno because, again, I didn't start writing this down until November. And so I had so many books to write in, and I was writing them in another place, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to write the name of the book. I do love the visual of it, but I don't know that I love it enough that I want to continue this particular format for my 2023 reading journal. Again, it's one of those things that I'm considering because I do want to have stacks of books, but it might be tracking something else for me. But those are all of those pages there. This is another thing that I definitely love the look of, but I did not realize the issue of volume. Okay, so it starts off well enough, and this is where I was tracking the name of the book, the author, the rating, and when I finished it. This also made me realize that I need to be much more diligent in my Hobonichi weeks because some of this information I had to look up on Amazon because I wasn't tracking the author, or my writing was so messy because that really is a functional planner journal for me that I couldn't read the name. So this is something I definitely realized that I need to be a little bit more diligent on. The ratings I thought I would track as well on Storygraph, but because I do not read cover to cover, I thought that it would be disingenuous for me personally to say, oh, I read this amount of pages when I might not have. Now, this amount of books I think still works because I got the gist of the story and it's fine. But to say, from a 384 page book, I read 384 pages, probably not. And so I'm not doing Storygraph anymore just because there is really no inherent value. And I already know, just based on the type of books that I read, that I like fantasy, romance, spicy is where it's at for me. And if the guys are hot and have wings, even better. I do not feel any sort of compulsion to read outside of the things that I like. Again, it is meant to unwind, get me out of my head. And so I'm not looking to expand my horizons. And the few times that I have, it's either because of a buddy read or a Patreon read with my friend Andy, and some of them I have thoroughly enjoyed and some of them I haven't, but it was more the experience of doing a buddy read with her that was more important to me than what we were actually reading. But where this became problematic is because I'd already set this up and set up the pages behind it, I did not take into account the number of pages or the number of books. And so I had to add some extra pages, and right now I'm at 209 books read. I've actually read a few more than this. So I'm going to add something here, but I'm going to wait till December is done and then just probably stick something right on top of this, just because I had no idea. I had no idea whatsoever. And a lot of it is driven, again, by Kindle Unlimited. And a lot of it is driven because I don't track series. I've learned that I will check Amazon because that's what is probably 99% of where I'm getting my books. And I will see if the series is done. If the series is done, then I will just kind of binge the series and get it out of my system. I hate series that it's left on a cliffhanger. And there are some authors in here who seem to love doing that stuff. And so I don't track the series because if at all possible, I'm going to read the entire thing over a span of a few days. I will lose sleep if I like a story enough. So yeah, I don't even feel the need to track it. And because Amazon is stalking me, they always suggest, hey, this just came out from this author. So I rely on that. But I don't track anticipated reads and I don't track series because for the most part, I like to finish them all in one go. I do enjoy how I did this. If a book is DNF'd or I did not finish it, I don't give it a rating at all, and I don't feel like giving it a 1 star. A 2 star, more than likely for me, is I'm going to start it and I'm going to read the last few chapters and I don't feel any need to read in between. For a 3 star for me, the story was decent and I finished it, but I probably wouldn't read it again. A 4 and a 5 are very close to me. A 4 is definitely a reread, but it's not at the top of the reread list. A 5 star, it made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me cheer, and I cannot wait to read it again. And this could be warehoused on my living rent-free list, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. When I do my 2023 setup, I'm probably going to do something very similar, just devote a lot more pages, because I'd rather have too much space than not enough and have to deal with this kind of thing. Because this actually was a little stressful for me to try to figure out how to accomplish this. And I want to kind of do it this kind of Dutch door thing so that I can have my rating here, although I kind of know what it is, whenever I'm writing down a book. This is also something I didn't do until the latter part of November. And just tackling this entire list, even though I had all of the data in my Hobonichi, was no bueno. So I do know when I do my 2023, I do want to tackle it on a monthly basis versus all at the end of the year. Now this here was just a happy accident, and that's because of the kind of vibe that I was going for. I thought, let me just print out all of the book covers in black and white. 1, it makes it easy, and 2, it kind of stays in the theme. Now, a lot of the books that I've read do have dark covers, but there are a few here and there that don't. So this makes it look cohesive to me. And I actually really like the look of it. The sizing on this, I formatted something small. If you want exact dimensions of any of these things, just let me know in the comments and I'll go ahead and reply back once I can go into Canva, because it actually tells me what the actual dimensions are. But I knew I had read a lot of books, and so I wanted something very small. And so this goes over a number of pages as well. And again, I wanted to take advantage of just decorating only the sides, and that's why there's a bit of a Dutch door. I do still have a few more books I need to print, but again, I'll print that at the end of the year once I've accounted for everything. And if there's some white space here, then I might just put the total number of books here. I might just do some deco. Again, I'm not afraid of white space, but I do love the look of this. And so I will continue this black and white cover spread for my reading corner for 2023. I'm not going for the same theme for 2023 for my annual section, but I really think this is super effective. Now this here is my rendition of the book bracket that you see prevalent on reading journals, where you kind of whittle down so that you have a favorite book by the end of the year. And the thought of that is just hilarious to me, because I cannot think of one single book that wins over all of these other books. And so this living rent-free are stories that I absolutely love, stories that I absolutely would love to read again. And with the exception of this one, these are all 5-star reads for me. Now, a 5-star read doesn't necessarily automatically get on this list, but anytime I see this on any of the lists that I've shown you, I just want to read it again. In fact, this one I've read twice, and the 5th book in this series I've read twice, and both of these are fairly new. TJ Klune has become a favorite author of mine, as well as KF Breene. I probably read more KF Breene books than any author for this year. And so how I tackled this was, I did like the aspect of doing the actual colored cover. I put in my rating here. Again, this is the only one that's not a 5-star. And then I just got some quotes offline from that particular book because I didn't feel the need to write my thoughts, because I know just thinking about these books, I want to read it again. I love these characters, and it makes me happy just knowing that I read them the first time, and I cannot wait to read them the second, the third, the fourth time. So this is my version of the book bracket, because I'm not just picking one. I'm just not. I did have buddy reads with my friend Andy because I was setting this up towards the ending of the year. It was really easy for me to figure out spacing and whatnot because we read 5 books. Yeah, 5. And I just did my thoughts. I don't summarize or do synopsis of stories because honestly, I don't care. If I want to, I'll read it again. But more often than not, I like to put down my feelings on why I loved something. We also had her book club for her Patreon monthly buddy read. It's something she's going to continue into 2023, and I cannot wait. I have not filled out this one yet because I am nearly done with reading this book, although I have read the end and I certainly have some thoughts, but I will write this down towards the ending of the year. And this is something I'll definitely do again for 2023, although I might devote a few more pages because she also has a year-long readathon challenge. I can't remember what it's called. If you're interested, I will link her channel below. Check out her Patreon. It is a monthly buddy book club thing. Sorry, my words escaped me. And she gives you the option every month to choose the next month's book. And I love that. I've read things that, again, I normally would not have read. And I loved the interactive aspect of that. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that you check out my friend Books and Scribbles. That's my girl, Andy, and check out her Patreon. And it's a really good time, and she does release a lot of content only for her Patreons. So definitely go ahead and check it out, and I am definitely looking forward to 2023. This is another page or spread that I will fill out at the end of the year just to figure out, my favorite Patreon read, my favorite buddy read, thoughts to close out the year, and I'm already working on lists of what worked and what didn't to help me with my setup for 2023, which I have not yet started. And then we go into the monthly spreads. And these were so much fun to do because, as I mentioned, I'm not a bookstagrammer, not a booktuber, not a book talker. And so when I do reading challenges or when I'm reading specific books, it's because I can envision the reading spread. And I know for some of you that might be bizarre, but it's not really about being immersive in the challenge, because some of the challenges that I've followed, I never actually reported anything. It wasn't about that for me. It was about giving the spread for that particular month focus. Now, I didn't have a lot read in the beginning of the year, 3 books each of these months. And so I decided to put these together. But as you'll see, to finish out the year, every month has a 2-page spread. And I do believe I am going to continue that for 2023. Now, unlike the front section, which had a theme, this did not. So I did setups that fit whatever that particular month was. So for April, it was the Aurelium Magical Readathon. And so I printed and scaled down some things, put it in here. I sprayed some distress stain on here. This, that was the path that I chose, and I really chose this because this path had the least amount of books, and at that time I didn't know how much that I would be reading, and I just kind of inserted this here as a tip in, added some deco, this is some transfer stickers, and then just wrote a little bit of what I read to fulfill this, and just some thoughts. Again, I don't go too heavily into stats, I don't go too heavily into all of the books that I read. To me, that's not important. I don't also list all of the books that I've read in the month because I have that information here, and I do segment it by the month. And so if I'm really looking for the books that I've read, this is where I would go. I wouldn't go to the monthly spread. This is really just to play with some of my stuff and then highlight some things either by way of reading challenges or standouts. I had made this in another video, so I just glued this in. For May, my friend Andy, again for her Patreons, had a book bingo. So that's books and scribbles bingo. And so she had a little printable you could have done, but I just did my own. And I did make a bingo right there. Luckily, there was a free space. And then I did some standouts on some books that I read that month. And that's kind of how I'm approaching my monthly setups, where the standouts probably for the most part are books that I really enjoyed, but I just love seeing text on a page. I don't do this because I've got the greatest penmanship, although I really like my penmanship. It really is just some thoughts of why I loved something and just going from there. For June, Completely Melanie and Kaylani Simply Me and Reed's Readers was having Camp Seasonathon, and so I participated in that. I use some of that to kind of focus my reading. It's like prompts that I do or hashtags that I do for my coloring book hobby. They just help me focus. I don't actually participate online in a lot of these things. Now, the standout that I wrote here was about an author, but the two books that I read about or wrote about wasn't necessarily good things. This was a DNF for me. And this one, I like the series, but I thought it would be done. And it's not. And I really, really dislike those. I really wish for Amazon, if an author knows, and maybe that's a problem because they don't, they're just kind of reading and writing piecemeal. Tell me that there's going to be 10 books in a series so I can make an informed decision like, okay, so books 7 through 10 are not written yet. Do you have a, estimated publication date? Do I want to get involved in a series that is going to leave me hanging? I know that's why people do series trackers. I don't want to wait. So yeah, I will continue this series because it is a very interesting premise, and I think the main male character is super sexy. I actually don't even mind the main female character. But yeah, it's just, you get to the end and like, oh, so we're not done with this story. Okay, great. So that was June. July, I don't know why there's so many Christmas vibes, but this sticker kind of dictated the spread. And again, I just wrote some standout books and my thoughts on them. And all of these were actually 5-star reads, and they are quite different. This is modern. This is very much a spicy book. And it was surprising to me how much I enjoyed this book. The second book in the series, they're standalones, but it's a part of a series apparently. I didn't like as much, but this one, I thought this was fabulous. And the Lord Stariel series is definitely more YA, so quite different from these two books here. This, to me, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, is like a 2-star spicy because it's a slow burn, and then there's some spicy aspects at the towards the ending of it, but there's not a lot. This one, it's probably like a 4 or 5. It was pretty spicy. This one, this is for teenagers, so I don't even know if they kiss in the first book. No, I don't think so, because I don't think they actually confess their love or whatever until like book 2 or 3. But it was such an interesting premise that I really enjoyed it. July is the year that I turned 50, and so I just wanted to make a little note there. Maybe that's why I chose this sticker, because she does look celebratory. For August, this was the autumn equinox, the one that I showed you in April. That was the spring equinox for the Aurelium Magical Readathon. This was a sticker set from a Sticky Club subscription that I got, and this is aureliadebuard.com. And then these colorful stickers are from leanneflug.com, again, in a Sticky Club pack that I got. This little postcard, it's the same thing. So on this side, I did the standouts that weren't necessarily for this readathon, but on here I read what I needed to do to fulfill. Again, I never posted any of this towards the Discord server or to the online Google Sheet to track what was read. This is really for my own purposes. But I do love how this spread came out, and I really love that. And if you haven't seen it, another tangent. I definitely would recommend the series Wednesday on Netflix. This made me think of that. I love it. I would have liked to have done the same thing I did in April, but I had not printed out these things. And so I thought, okay, well, let me just go in a different direction. For September, again, the deco kind of dictated the color palette. I don't have a problem from every month it being different, so long as the month itself is cohesive. Completely Melanie and those two others were doing Seasonathon Academy, and so these were the selected readings that fulfilled the prompts that I chose. Again, never posted it anywhere. And then again, I did some standouts and just my thoughts on some books. Now, in October, my friend Andy, for her Patreon, we read the book Babel. And I was a little hesitant because it's a really thick book. It's very well written, but it's not a genre that I ended up enjoying. So I do like the whole academia thing, but it was too much world building. It was too much. It was too much of everything and not any of the kind of things that I like. Fast pace, fantasy, romance, spicy. None of that was in here, but it was very well written. But the thing that I was most excited about this book was the spread. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I did know that it was going to be very academia based. And so these book stickers are things from Amazon. Some of these stickers are from Sticky Club, as well as these. A book that I absolutely loved reading, even though the spice level was maybe like a 2.5, was A Rake of His Own by A.J. Lancaster. It's the 5th book in the series. It was released in October. And this one, because the two characters, Marius and Raken, these two guys, oh, I loved their chemistry. I loved their story. I loved their book. And while I probably will read the first book of the series, The Lord of Stariel, I'm definitely going to reread this one. I don't feel the compulsion to read all of them. This is one of the series, there are a few, that I loved the Kindle Unlimited reading so much that I purchased because I wanted to own the ebook. Again, space is an issue. I think I'd actually love to own this physically, but I know I always have my ebook with me because I do commute quite a bit, and so I can always read it when I'm in the mood to hang out with Marius and Raken again, because I loved their story. But yeah, the excitement for that particular book was about the reading spread, not necessarily about the book itself. For November, again, there's no reason or rhyme. I was just going through my stuff and picked a color palette, and I just put some standouts on some books or some series that I read. Amelia Hutchins is a little problematic for me. This is another one where I knew that the 5th book wasn't out, but I didn't know that I'd like it so much. I actually like this series even more than her Fighting Destiny series. I have a problem with that series because of some of the writing. If you're interested in some of my thoughts and some of my favorites series, let me know, and I can certainly put a video together for that. And then for December, I set this up, but I will probably finish this out towards the ending of the month. My friend Andy, again, is doing a reading challenge, Books and Scribbles. I don't know if this is Patreon only, and if it is, oh well, there it is. I'm pretty sure that I've actually already fulfilled all of these, but I wanted to wait till the end of the month, because what I'm going to do, and this is how I kind of do reading prompts, is I'm going to look at the books that I've read. I'll see how it matches up here, and then that's how I'll write it in. This doesn't help me select a book. I look at the prompt, I look at what I read, and I try to make them fit. And that's how I do these readathon things. Just because, like I said, I don't have a whole catalog of things to be read, and so I'll specifically pick something if it fits something that I'm focusing on for that particular month. Again, I've yet to set up 2023, although I've kind of earmarked some pages, and I'll kind of flesh this out probably either towards the ending of the month or beginning of January, because I know that I won't be doing any kind of tracking towards the end of January, because I do plan to do this on a monthly basis. I'm not too fussed that I haven't done it yet. I mean, honestly, I've only just finished setting all of this stuff up, but I have to tell you, I love looking on this. My reading hobby is fun. My journaling hobby is fun. And when I can bring those two things together, it just makes me happy. And because I have a plethora of stuff, I know that the annual section for 2023 is probably going to have a cohesive theme. But then I get to go crazy when I get to my monthly sections, just because, I mean, it's mine, why not? And because I have so much pages left over in here, I'm thinking I can get at least 2023, potentially 2024. Because I do want, if I'm going to do something in this journal, to have it yearly. So if I don't have enough for 2024, then I'll just start a new journal. I know it was super chatty, super talky, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. And like I said, I'll do a flip through once I've done my annual tracker setups and show you guys what I'll be doing. And then maybe on a monthly basis, when I'm doing a monthly setup, I'll either finish out with you guys or start out with you guys. I don't know. I've learned over the years that creating and talking and trying to have fun in my stuff is difficult when I'm also trying to film. I'd love to know what you guys think. Are there any monthly setups or whatnot that you really enjoyed? Or what do you track in your own reading journal? I'd love to know in the comment section below. All right. Well, as always, aloha.